Hello, my name is Ling Ling, and we're at the Women's Forum Asia. And here we have a special guest, Wendy Teleki, Head of Secretariat for the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative with the World Bank Group, or also known as WeFi. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. For our listeners who are unfamiliar with this initiative, could you please tell us more about WeFi?
Sure. WeFi was launched 2 years ago at the G20 Hamburg Summit, and it's an initiative funded by 14 countries. And they've all put their funding into this program to support women entrepreneurs in emerging markets. We work really through the multilateral development banks. So we're housed at the World Bank, but we also work through the Asian Development Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, and the Inter-American Development Bank, in addition, of course, to the World Bank Group, which includes the World Bank and IFC. So we have this amazing platform to run projects around the world that focus on supporting women entrepreneurs. And we have about $250 million that we've allocated that will reach at least 50 countries around the world. And we hope that will support over 100,000 women entrepreneurs and also crowd in about $2 billion in funding for these kinds of programs.
Oh my goodness, 150,000 women and 50 countries, if I got that right? That's a lot of success stories there, I would think. Mind if you could share some success stories from WeFi?
Yes, so we're just getting started and we're working, as I said, on many different projects in different places. I'll just give an example of an event I was at a couple days ago in Manila. Where we have an insurance company that we've been developing with them an approach to reaching the women entrepreneurs market in the Philippines. So this is an insurance company. This is a subsidiary of a large bank in the Philippines. And they decided that they wanted to take kind of a full life approach to women, both looking at their family, home life, and their business life. So they've developed a product that really addresses risks that span their business and their family. So things like when there's an accident, and obviously this would include accident insurance, but also if your child care becomes unavailable, how do you solve for that problem? And, you know, it funds the ability to bring in a new caregiver if there's some problem. Also for women who are entrepreneurs, they often are very concerned that if they have a business and they have assets in the business and a fire happens or something happens at the business level, how will that affect their family? So trying to develop a suite of products that really ensures that women can take risks in their business, that they can grow and do things that may be a little bit outside of their comfort zone, and they're not going to jeopardize their family, you know, their children's health, their education, things like that. So this was a really exciting initiative, and we're really pleased to see that they are launching that product and they're putting it out in the market with women.
That really sounds like an exciting initiative. And they're also addressing a common challenge that women entrepreneurs face, which is they have to think about their family life, their home life, and the risk that comes with their business and all that. With all the initiatives that WeFi has supported, what are the common challenges of female entrepreneurs that you have observed?
Sure. Well, we talk a lot about what we call the 5 Cs. And these, I think, we see are common everywhere around the world. So it will be no surprise to anybody that women, first and foremost, lack access to capital. So we know that there's about a $1.5 trillion gap in financing for women. The largest gap is here in Asia. And not only is there a debt financing gap, but there's also an equity gap. So it's very much more difficult for women to get access to equity financing, and the proportion of women who get equity financing is much, much lower than the proportion of men. So figuring out how you address that by changing the way banks think about banking on women, changing the way venture capitalists or private equity funds think about financing women is really critical. The second C is contracts. Women need access to markets. They need people who will buy their goods and services. They need corporations to bring them into their procurement chains. They need to be distribution outlets for fast-moving consumer goods and other activities. And they also need to access e-commerce platforms, which is really such a great new medium for women to get access to markets, because women can do that flexibly. So we see many women going into the digital space, and we want to support that, and we have programs to support that. The third C is community, and those are really the connections that women need. It's not that women don't have strong networks, but what we find, the evidence is that women's networks are not as helpful for them in growing their business as men's networks. So men might have a very easy time, calling on their network to give them access to finance, to give them access to contracts and other things. And women's networks are very supportive and very deep in many ways, and they're deeper than men's, but they're not getting the same business support from those networks. So how do you broaden the networks that women have so that they can really rely on those connections that they have? And then all of these relate to the capacity of women. So how do women make sure they understand what the standards are for the contracts? How do they make sure that they can put together a proposal to get access to finance? How can they pitch? So that capacity development is really important, in making sure there's training, mentoring, coaching, so that they can get those skills that they need. And finally, and I call this the kind of secret sauce, is the confidence levels. So women often need, to really understand what their bias is themselves in terms of taking risks, putting themselves out in the market, competing against other firms and other places. One of the really interesting things I think we see is women cluster in certain industries. So they cluster in certain industries. Those tend to be low paying, low margin, low productivity businesses. And we don't see as many in what we would call non-traditional industries. But when we do see women in non-traditional industries, they actually perform better than male-owned businesses. So it's a rare occasion, a woman in the construction industry or women in manufacturing of, furniture. But when you do see women, they actually do very well. So we want to be encouraging women to take those risks and go out of their comfort zone. Clearly, another area is tech. And, we want to see more women in technology and more women leading in technology and more founders in the technology space.
Fantastic. When you mentioned those 5 C's, as a female entrepreneur myself, I recognize the challenges within, especially the last C when it comes to confidence, going out to pitch and talking about my business. So I recognize that, sometimes within myself, I might not be as confident. Could you also, you mentioned about tech too. So can you elaborate on what is the role of WeFi when it comes to supporting female entrepreneurs in tech and maybe in, maybe non-female traditional industries?
Yeah, so maybe I can give an example of a firm that was supported through a fund that we've supported. And this is a company in Pakistan called Dot and Line. It's a female-founded company, and it's an online tutoring program. So they've developed a tutoring application. They've brought in, I think it's over 50, maybe closer to 100 women who are the tutors. These are often mothers who need a flexible schedule, who can work from home or, work more flexibly. And they're tutoring girls and boys in math. So you're really seeing here the dynamic of women leveraging technology as founders of businesses, leveraging it to create employment among women, and then also leveraging it to teach girls math. They teach girls and boys, but to me, that's in Pakistan, it's really an amazing story. So those kinds of stories we really want to see more of, and I think the nice thing about that story and what you see is so many of the enterprises that we look at, these are commercial businesses, and we focus on commercial entrepreneurs, but they have a real social impact as well.
It's amazing to hear these stories about how you can be an enterprise and still have an impact on society, especially empowering girls through education. So, what advice would you give to our listeners
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to diversity or inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
and when it comes to what you're doing with WeFi?
Right. So we are here to support women entrepreneurs. So for women who are entrepreneurs, I would say be bold and really take risks and put yourself out there. Think about how you can leverage your networks, build your networks and your capacity so that you can really think about access to markets in different ways and access to finance in different ways. So that confidence element, you can do it. You can be brave and confident, and you can get what you're looking for. But for many people who are more in corporations, who are in banks, maybe who are investors, who are doing things that they might not be thinking are directly involved, many of those services that they're providing, or many of the things that they do, like if they're in procurement, they can be thinking about how are we able to bring more women into the space? How can we procure more from women? How can we lend more to women? How can we provide insurance more to women? And really think about what differences it is that women need in the support that they get, just so that you can bring them into that product line. And with that, there's also an internal question: is how do companies, firms, banks really structure themselves, and what are their unconscious biases? So we spend a lot of time with our programs to work with the banks that we're engaged with, or work with the insurance companies to help them think about what their unconscious bias is, so that when they're selling to women, or when they're trying to lend to women, or that they're not reinforcing the stereotypes or the negative types of behaviors that have created these unequal playing field in the first place. So whether you're an entrepreneur or supporting entrepreneurs in some way, there's something for you to do.
It sounds like everyone needs to play a part in making sure that, when it comes to careers, to business, we can make it inclusive for everyone.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for this conversation, Wendy. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Really delighted to be here.
Yes.
Mhm.